So Baby Reindeer, this is what I would classify and consider as a new Netflix phenomenon. This is one of the rare situations where word of mouth is just so apparent and it's so pervasive that people start to talk about a show and it's like, well, what's that? It's on Netflix. Let me go check it out. I was not aware of this show until my brother texted me and he said, have you heard of this? Have you seen this? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Is that like a kid show? Baby Reindeer? What is that? And then the very next day I get on Netflix and what is it? It's number 1 on that top 10, which is crazy. Again, I think probably the best marketing tool in all of Hollywood at this point. It's something that'll easily get people to watch something. And so I got a chance to check out this limited series. It's 7 episodes. I don't know. Have you checked out any of the episodes so far, Baby Reindeer?
Yeah, first five. I got 2 left.
So this is definitely one of those shows that I think people are getting through quite quickly just because of the fact that many people are talking about it. And there is a lot to really unpack in the show as well. You don't want to be spoiled by it because there are places that it goes that are very, very emotional and take you to certain places that I don't think you would have predicted in the first episode. But by the end of the show, it goes in completely new territory. But I'll start with you, man. What did you think about so far what you've seen out of this new Netflix show, Baby Reindeer?
Yeah, the best way in my head I think I can describe it is it does feel like a version. I don't know, maybe not even a version, but it does feel like it can be in conversation with a series like I May Destroy You, right? Where there is a ton of trauma, but it is meant to be a dark comedy. You won't be absent from laughter. You will laugh, but what all good jokes contains true shit, right? And so there's a lot of trigger warnings and potential things I just want people to watch out for before watching the series. It does get quite dark in a lot of different ways, but it's good. And one of those things I think that makes it good is the performances. You know, we just got done talking about Shogun and how good the performances are in that show. Richard Gadd and Jessica Gunning, the 2 stars in this show, I think they're just killing it. They're really putting on amazing performances. On a very basic level, what the show is about is Richard Gadd's character is a struggling comedian, and he shows kindness to this woman. He works at a bar. He shows kindness to this woman who comes to his bar. He's a bartender, and eventually she begins to obsess over him. And she becomes his stalker. And there's on the face, that is what you think this is, and it becomes something completely different. And like you said, you really don't want to spoil it because it is something I think you have to see for yourself. But overall, man, I think it's the conversations that they're having are hard, but I think they're important. I think that what they're doing here is absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, I think this will also it's gonna be some battles with these limited series coming up in the Emmys, man. I really do. I really enjoy this show. Again, I only have 2 more episodes, but the way it's been going and the way I feel, I really enjoy the show. And I can't, and just as you said, I heard about this with word of mouth. I heard somebody else say, have you watched Baby Reindeer? I too was like, I don't know what that is. What's Baby? I also thought it was like an animated show or something. You know what I mean? Like I thought it was like Big Mouth or like, like the heck is Baby Reindeer? What are you saying to me? But once you watch it, you'll understand. It's really like that. But yeah, it's been a really good watch so far. Every episode is like something worthwhile, and I think anytime that happens, you have a good show on your hands.
It's also important to note, and I briefly alluded to this in the opening information dump, but Baby Reindeer is based on the real events of Richard Gadd's life when he was stalked by a middle-aged woman in the mid-2010s, and so that was a real life occurrence for him.
That's crazy.
And he took that material and turned it into a one-man sort of stand-up show, and now this show, or at least that show, excuse me, is adapted into this limited series. And I've completed Baby Reindeer, and I have to say that Baby Reindeer, it's one of the most chilling, tragic, emotional, darkly funny, and deeply disturbing shows that I've watched in a really, really long time. And I think that it's such an achievement on so many levels that it's hard to even process it on a first watch, as difficult as it can be to watch. I do think that this is something I'll revisit just because the way you'll perceive it after you finish it and after you have all of the information at your disposal is going to be different than that first time, because what's really, really interesting to me is how much it does evolve over the course of 7 episodes and how much they're able to achieve and accomplish in such a limited time frame, because these episodes are not long. They're not an hour. Most of them are about 35 minutes. The longest episode is the 4th one, which is about 48 minutes. But Jessica Gunning's character, Martha, the Stalker, really owns the first 3 episodes. She is such an incredibly talented actress who I'm just wondering, where has she been all these years? I want to see more of her. And I think after the show, she's going to be shot to the moon for sure. But it's such a showcase for her. And a lot of the framing of the show makes you feel like that this is one of the most evil TV villains that we've seen in the past few years. And she's performing it and she's going for it. And she's doing such incredible work. But then you get to the second half of the show, the latter half of the show, that completely recontextualizes everything that you saw. And it provides so much depth and a lot of color to Donnie's character, portrayed by Richard Gadd. He basically plays a fictionalized version of himself. And all that information that you get, all that extra context that you get, just reshapes the show entirely. It becomes a completely different animal at that point. And I think that it's just a real showcase and an exercise in empathy and what it means to really understand somebody's previous history, to understand the place that they come from, to understand the trauma that they've been through. Because when you look at the characters of Donnie and Martha, they feel so opposite and separate at the beginning of the show, but by the end of it, you realize that they have so much more in common than one might initially think, especially from the perspective of Martha, because there's stuff that you learn about her as well. And even in the middle of the series, when there are really, really difficult episodes to watch, it still becomes absolutely worth it, because all of that difficult stuff is just providing that context that you need in order to understand Donnie's position. Because there's stuff that happens in those first couple of episodes where it's like, I gotta ask, man, why didn't you do this earlier? Why didn't you report this woman earlier? Like, she's stalking you clearly. There's something wrong here. Go to the cops. And the show knows that's the case. They introduce it in the first episode and they make you wonder, well, what's going on here? Why hasn't he done something sooner? And then as you work your way through the show, you absolutely see what's happening here. It's tremendous. It's incredible. Everybody should watch it if you feel up to it, if you feel like you can get through it, because there are a lot of themes of sexual assault and abuse and rape that are covered throughout this show. That stuff is really, really tough to deal with. That has to be addressed, before you watch it, to know what you're getting into. But I just want to lastly shout out, outside of the actors, the directing pair, the pair of directors that they had for most of these episodes. Rowanika Tofilska, she directed, I think, the first 4 episodes. She also just co-wrote Love Lives Bleeding, so she's a really, really incredible filmmaker that I'm keeping an eye out for. And then also Josephine Bornbusch, who is a Swedish filmmaker. I haven't seen any of her previous work, but just based off of what she had to do in those final few episodes, which are the most emotionally taxing ones, just incredible work, from these two. And so these are 2 female filmmakers that have a huge voice and a huge imprint all over the show, in addition to the collaboration with Richard Gadd, who is now one of my most sought after new actors, because I just want to see what else he may produce in the future, because his voice and his courage also, which has to be pointed out, it takes a lot of courage to go back to this time period, because if even half of this shit is true, I feel really, really bad for him. And I feel really sorry that he went through this, but this is obviously also a process of healing for him to produce a show like this, to confront it in this way through his art. And so he has to be given so much credit for taking that step and making this a reality and sort of willing this into existence, and also being willing to address all of these really, really troubling things that happen throughout the course of the show. So a lot of people to really pay attention to after the show. And definitely, again, as I said, with Shogun, this is something that people will be talking about all throughout award season. It's going to be a really, really competitive year, clearly based on the performances of these particular shows. And so I just can't wait to see the outlook of what the rest of the year takes shape to be. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the brand new Netflix show, Baby Reindeer. If you've checked this out, hit us up and let us know what you think.